Good time?
Yes, excellent.
Very good. How's the rest of the world faring?
Sorry?
How is the rest of the world?
We went to 7 countries.
Yes.
I lost 8 kilograms in weight.
Okay.
We walked 250k.
Very good. All right. And it wasn't too hot then?
It was 30 when we left.
Okay. At least it wasn't 40.
We never got up as high as that.
Yeah. It's not quite July yet, but this is probably the first end of June, July that I'll say that I'm happy to not be in Spain right now. Opening karakia. Whakataka te ao.
Ki te uru, whakataka te ao ki te tonga, ki mā kina kina ki uta, ki mā taratara ki tonga, ki a hia ki a kura, te reo, e uka, e pauhuna, te kuro, tēnā, ue, tāi.
We have no apologies, which is great. We have Donna online. Donna, can you hear us? Mike, I see you there too. And Steve as well. Awesome. Health and safety, page 3. We won't do that again because you all know it. Moving straight into it, we have a deputation from Pukeiti Rhododendron Trust. Neil is the chair. Welcome to TRC.
Good morning all.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time this morning. As alluded to by Craig, my name is Neil. I'm the new chair of the Pukeiti Rhododendron Trust, or PRT for short. And I am sure most of you are aware, but the PRT, we are enthusiasts of the Pukeiti garden, rhododendrons of all types, the New Zealand native forest, and conservation. We have over 400 members in our organisation. This year is our 75th anniversary, if you're not aware. From our establishment in the mid-1950s, the founders and like-minded people developed Pukeiti Garden and the surrounding forest. Yes, the rhododendron is the well-known focus of this garden, but less well-known is the early forest rejuvenation. There are many thousands of natives that have been planted over the decades, and well over 1,000 rimu, which are now very well established throughout. And next time you go to the garden, if you look left and right up the road, you will see them emerging from the bush. In 2010, our trust entered in a partnership with the TRC. This was the handing over of the garden to the TRC and the people of Taranaki. So, why do we keep the trust going? Our partnership with the TRC includes, but is not limited to, knowledge transfer, assisting on garden care and garden projects, and providing funding when possible. Right. Our funding commitments this year, if you are not aware, include an annual garden salary subsidy, a new initiative, a 3-year horticultural apprenticeship. This commenced in May of this year. Charlotte Wood joined the gardens team. And later this year, we have a distribution from our investment fund. A key focus for our organisation is rhododendron conservation. One way of doing this is via our ex situ conservation project. And this involves not just us, the PRT, but also the TRC, associates and other organisations across New Zealand and the world, It includes work with the Ministry for the Primary Industries to bring historically known available plants onto a New Zealand not new list. This means if we can prove, if we can prove a plant was in New Zealand at some time in the past and can get it listed, then it is available to New Zealand horticulturalists, public gardens, growers, homeowners, etc. Selfishly, we concentrate on the rhododendron. This is no mean feat. What we've presented to government departments to date does not fit their processes well. It is a work in progress, but we are challenging the directives. Now, importantly, I want to make it clear to all councillors here today the value of Pukeiti, the Taranaki Regional Council Gardens team, and of course our partnership. Pukeiti Garden is not just important to New Zealand, it holds global status. The rhododendron collection at Pukeiti, the variety, the quality, is worldwide top 5. Arguably top 3. And this includes botanical institutes, some of which are hundreds of years old. Pukeiti is very important, not just to New Zealand conservation, but worldwide efforts around species conservation. The garden alone holds over 100 rhododendron species that are red listed. This means they are either very rare or extinct in the wild across their native lands. To understand how good the TRC Gardens team is, most public gardens within Taranaki are highly regarded and depositories of biological importance. If you're not aware again, last year Pukeiti Garden received 70,000 visitors. Now, remember the Ex Situ project. This is a propagation and raising from seed of rare and not so rare plants to distribute across New Zealand. The Pukeiti Gardens team does this with the Pukeiti Rhododendron Trust and in conjunction with other propagators across New Zealand, but it is a main hub of this activity. This part of the project now has Northland to Southland distribution of the genus Rhododendron and species, including the vulnerable, rare and wild extinct plants. Everything is tracked. This important distribution range is due to the variety of microclimates across New Zealand. We can't grow all species in Taranaki, so the best chance for survival is distribution nationwide. A Pukeiti Garden Management Plan is soon to be submitted to Council. This will come from the TRC Gardens team and includes expertise from Pukeiti, our trust, local garden forums and hapu. This management plan should be taken note of. It is about future-proofing Pukeiti. To close, I've only scratched the surface of what goes on at Pukeiti outside of the displays. Taranaki's Pukeiti Garden is world-renowned and respected. The leaps forward the garden has made since the TRC takeover is immense, none of which is possible without the very skilled and engaged people within the TRC Gardens team. Historic, or should I say heritage aspects, will only get you so far. Without a skilled and dedicated team, you can't enhance an environment such as Pukeiti. What we have in facilities and teams is, again, world class and the envy of many. I thank you for your time today. These are some key things I just wanted to put on the table so that we do not forget the teams that we have on the ground, particularly around Pukeiti. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And how are you finding it? How long have you been chair for, and how are you finding it?
I've been in the chair a couple of minutes.
Really?
And it's fine.
Yeah. Were you
You probably all know a lot of the core of the committee and the members in the Puketi Rhododendron Trust. There are people there with decades of experience and knowledge.
And passion, right?
And absolutely, yes.
Questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask a question, if I may, which is, you come to us today and you more or less said that the important thing is the noting of the fact that there's a new plan coming. Is there anything particularly that you want to emphasise on that we should be really either funding, doing it, or will that become clear once the plan is announced?
It'll become clear once you see the management plan. The management plan has been put together by the management of the gardens teams as a future-proofing document. It re-emphasises the importance of the garden. Personally, I'm not here today to ask you to fund anything.
That's just as well.
Yeah, so I'm aware of the environment. But I'm here to re-emphasise the facility which is up there, which is a stunning facility, and it can only be because of, number one, the historic input, and number two, the current input. And the current input is the TRC Gardens team.
I thank you for your passion and your dedication. It certainly looks fantastic when we do go up there. I'm just a little bit worried not knowing where we are going to be landing in the next couple of years with regard to the process with going forward with TRC. So I wish you all the luck and hopefully long may it continue. But as from this end of the things, we don't know where we're going to land. Well, we're not going to be here.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I fully understand that. Look, the Puketi Rhododendron Trust, we have no intention of going anywhere. So whatever the landscape looks like in the future, we are here to mesh in with whatever that may be.
and follow up that, knowing that we don't know our future, is it foreseeable that maybe the trust will take control, to have control of that?
Of the garden?
Yes?
No.
Okay.
No. We no longer have the resource
Okay.
for the facility as it stands now.
Which is why we stepped up in the first place.
I understand that.
Correct.
I know I'm aware.
It just concerns me a little bit in your presentation that you have an indication that we as councillors may undervalue the staff. I think I can speak for all the councillors here. We certainly do not. We understand that we have a very, very good team managing not only Puketi but all the gardens. So I'd like to assure you that we very much value the staff and their contribution that they've put in through the team led by Stu. So no, we certainly don't undervalue the staff in one little bit.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Realise that the staff are
Yep.
very important.
At no point am I saying that you do
every day,
undervalue.
up and down, give them a wave,
Yeah.
back to work you go, and all the dependent weather. So we certainly do not undervalue the staff.
Yep. But I didn't say that.
You're indicating.
No, I don't think I did either. What I'm here to do is I'm here to express our passion and our thanks for those gardens teams.
Good. Just a comment. Thank you for coming to remind us what a spectacular asset Puketi is to Aotearoa, to our communities and to the biodiversity, not just of Aotearoa, but obviously to the original lands of some of those species that you've mentioned are extinct or endangered as well. So thank you for that reminder. Just in terms of following up from my wonderful colleagues' comments about our political future, are you intending to go and visit with any of the councils in this current climate as well, which I would recommend that you do, to also remind them
about
It's a regional asset.
it's a regional asset. So while in the past Pukeeti has been dealing with TRC, us as governors, as you know, will no longer exist in a couple of years. It is those other people throughout the rohe who now may be needing to take responsibility and step up. So I would highly recommend that you're out there socialising all of the things that you've just mentioned to us with them as well, and helping them to realise what an asset we have under our maunga. So
Thank you. Yeah,
please do that.
Yeah, good idea.
Good point.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you so much, Neil. Keep up the good work. Thank you for stepping up into that role, and congratulations to your team and your team of board members too. Please pass on our thanks
No problem.
to them for the work they do and the passion they have.
Thank you for your time.
Kia ora.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, moving on to all the fun stuff. Item number 2, we have confirmation of minutes from the ordinary meeting of the 19th of May. That's on page 5. I have a mover and seconder for those. You,
I'll second,
Anita,
Chair.
Tom. All those in favour, please say aye. Are there any amendments or anything falling out of that anyone wants to discuss? Yes, there isn't. The extraordinary meeting, 26th of May, taking as read and confirming the minutes and resolutions. Any questions, any queries, any corrections? Appear to be none. I'll move those. Lee, you happy to second? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Policy and Planning Committee minutes, 9th of June. Agenda is there on page 9. Receiving them and adopting the recommendations there.
Happy to move.
Happy to move. Seconder.
Yes.
Thanks, Jonathan. Anything to add? Anything to change?
No, I think it's
Happy with
pretty
that?
succinct.
Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, there are none. No ops and rec, so we move straight on to exec, audit and risk, 16th of June. Receiving the minutes, adopting the recommendations.
No move, Chair, and item 6 will come up under the agenda further down.
Okay, very good. Seconder, thanks Lee. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, there are none. Taranaki Passenger Transport Joint Committee, 2nd of June. Alan?
No, a good meeting. I think it's a bit of cohesion between the TRC transport team and New Plymouth and making things happen, trying to see if we can make things happen quicker and more efficiently. So it was a good meeting all in all, and I'm happy to move the minutes.
Thank you.
And open to any questions, of course.
Any questions? Seconder, was anyone else there? From here? I guess I can second them. I'll second
Yeah.
those. Yeah. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? And item number 7, page 34, Civil Defence Joint Committee. I'll move those. Nothing to add. Seconder, please. Can be anybody.
Happy.
Thank you, Susan. All those in favour, please say aye.
Right.
Against? There are none. Regional Transport Committee. Alan?
Again, a very good constructive meeting actually going forward. It was good to see Kiwi Rail at the table, giving us a bit of a presentation and a bit of an outlook on that. I think most of the stuff's covered in the minutes, but again, happy to answer any questions. Happy to move.
Thank you. Tom, anything to add?
No, just under the council updates, there's I think we need to work going to the future of how we manage the logging routes within the province as a collective. It's certainly putting a lot of pressure on their local roading budgets from the 3 councils. So years ago we did a strategic report on logging, and it's probably timely that we do it again to see if we can coordinate improvements and how we fund that going forward, because it's a major part of the budgets of these councils that are struggling at the moment. So it's just something we need to work on going forward.
So that'll keep coming up at that
Yes, we did table it at the meeting, so we're hoping that we'll be able to do something going forward with the RTC before we disband.
Thank you. Are you happy to second?
Yeah, certainly second.
Yep.
Yep.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Ngāti Maru Joint Management Agreement. Mana Patohono Rohi Whenua.
Maria.
Thank you very much, and through you, Chair. So today before you are two agreements for your endorsement and then approval to sign for a relevant, appropriate council representative. The joint management agreement with Ngāti Maru and the Mana Wakahono Arohi with Ngāti Maru. If the members of the Exec Audit and Risk Committee can forgive the duplication, I'm going to run through the same presentation that was given when we took these draft agreements for an initial discussion at the last Exec Audit and Risk meeting, because they are quite complicated in terms of the legal underpinnings and how they relate to each other. But I'll do my best to walk you through it. And just to note, since that Exec Audit and Risk Committee, there's been one addition to the JMA that was a provision kind of relating to an add-on to the section around resource management reform, particularly if enforcement and compliance functions are taken off regional councils and put into a central body. There's just a provision that's been added that basically says if that happens, TRC and Ngāti Maru will tell that entity that this agreement exists and use our best efforts to kind of get them to uphold it, but noting it would still need to be kind of re-signed and not redone, as all of these agreements would be for that kind of scale of reform. All right, so we start with the joint management agreement. So the JMA is a requirement under the Ngāti Maru settlement, so it's not an optional in terms of an agreement has to be reached between TRC and Ngāti Maru. It's only an agreement between TRC and Ngāti Maru, but in terms of the paper, but it applies more broadly than that, and I'll come to that later. The settlement is very clear that it must cover plan making, monitoring and enforcement, resource consents, petroleum wells and mining consents. And then there's the ability to extend it to any other matter that's basically within the council's jurisdiction. And what's really important to emphasise for a JMA, and this is where it's different from a mana wakahono, is it involves formal shared decision making. Not on every provision, only specific provisions. But where basically the agreement requires the parties to agree something, that has legal weight as a decision of this council. So most of these provisions are related to the provisions on monitoring. So for example, if you were to agree that yes, we need another monitoring station in the Waitara catchment, that wouldn't have to come back to this committee or wouldn't go to the executive leadership team. It kind of gets a tick and away you go. But you'd be working that all throughout the process. For other matters, TRC retains decision-making authority, but it sets out how we will work with Ngāti Maru to kind of guide and work on decisions collaboratively. Importantly, it only applies to the Waitara River and activities in the catchment that affect the Waitara River. So the scope is basically freshwater and things that affect freshwater. And this is where it gets quite complicated. So in this settlement, it says specifically that some provisions only apply between TRC and Ngāti Maru. Some provisions apply to TRC and the Waitara River authorities, which are defined under the New Plymouth Lands Act, but for all intents and purposes, it's Ngāti Mutanga, Ngāti Tama, Ngāti Maru, and Te Atiawa are the four main ones. And then some others require it to go through the Waitara River Committee, which is the group that TRC needs to establish in partnership with those authorities under the Waitara Lands Act.
And so that when that is inevitably stood up, that committee would have kind of representation from, it would be a governance group with representation from all parties. So I appreciate that's very complicated. But nothing we can do about it because that's what the settlement says. Just so you can see, this is the Waitara catchment. So this is the kind of, the area that area of responsibility for this JMA. So that's the legal framework for the JMA. The legal framework for the Manawaka Hono, they are a tool specifically under the Resource Management Act. So they're focused on Resource Management Act functions. Doesn't go that broader kind of scope that the JMA has. Once initiated by an iwi, which Ngāti Maru has, an agreement must be agreed. There's no ability for council to say, no, we don't want this. Between this, Ngāti Maru has initiated with all 4 councils, so the intent is to have an agreement that is between Ngāti Maru and all 4, so one bit of paper covering all 4 councils. The RMA says that the Manawaka Hono must cover plan making and monitoring. Everything else in terms of our other functions, such as enforcement and consents, is optional on whether it's included or not. And as I mentioned before, the Manawaka Hono is quite similar in intent to the relationship agreement. Some of you will recall that this council agreed with Maniapoto under their settlement last year, in that it talks about how we'll work together, but council retains decision-making authority. And this one, in terms of its scope, applies across the Ngāti Maru Rohi, which you can see it's different from the Waitara catchment. And you can see here how it goes into the boundaries of all 3 territorial authorities as well, not to mention beyond the region. So both agreements, like any good agreement, you have a set of principles up front which guide the implementation of it. We've done our absolute best to keep them aligned between the 2 agreements to make it as simple as possible. However, there are some differences to account for the freshwater focus of the JMA, and also the settlement and the RMA, both of them set out mandatory principles that basically have to be included, and they're a bit different between those 2 things. So we cut and paste those across, so that's where some differences come up too. Not unmanageable by any means. Key principles are around recognising Ngāti Maru and their enduring relationship with their taonga, recognising and respecting that all parties have responsibilities and obligations, and there's a particular focus relevant to TRC around the statutory frameworks and the legislation that we have to implement. Upholding Te Treaty o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi and its principles. That's a very long way to say that, I know, but that we've been intentional on that because that is the language from this, that the Crown uses in settlement acts, to be very specific about how you need to refer to that. Your kind of standard, we will communicate well and good conduct stuff. And then finally, the JMA does also include reference to Te Mana o Te Wai. However, we've been very clear to be absolutely crystal clear that it's about that as a tikanga concept, not the legal definition that's in the NPSFM. And we've included provisions in there that also make it very clear if legislation says we have to interpret Te Mana o Te Wai as something different, that legislation takes precedence. Both agreements have a kind of oversight body to them. The JMA has the leadership forum of 4 TRC members and 4 from Ngāti Maru, with a co-chair from each. And that basically, they uphold the agreement, and they also are used to discharge certain responsibilities. We've also made sure, careful to draft this, that leadership forum can be integrated into the Waitara River Committee in the future, so you would only need to have 1 group rather than 2. Again, just to make the administration more straightforward. And then for the Manawaka Hono, it talks about a relationship forum with Ngāti Maru and reps from all 4 councils. Exact numbers to be confirmed, we'll do that in terms of reference down the line. And we've also drafted this line again so we can have, if we end up with multiple Manawaka Hono, which we're working that through, because all 7 iwi have now initiated with TRC, that we can at least have a single relationship reform that kind of talks to all those different agreements. So again, we're not having this an unworkable amount of meetings to try and get our councillors to. So what do the actual provisions say? The JMA and the Mana Waka Hono say the same things with regards to plan making. And it's a focus on basically, whenever we're doing a plan change, we organise a hui with Ngāti Maru and we talk through a bunch of important stuff. And so it sets out in there exactly what we'd talk about to discuss basically how Ngāti Maru can be involved in the plan making process, how we develop a common understanding of the context, basically is the plan change pitched right, is there other things we need to think about, and generally how do we establish that relationship as we work through a plan. And again, for all this stuff, the final decision-making authority on this still rests with council. It provides some more structure on how we do the consultation with iwi on a full draft. That consultation is required under the RMA and it's also in the planning bill and natural environment bills. So this just kind of provides a bit more detail on how we do that, i.e. we give them ideally 2 months to provide comment and then we provide a response on how we've addressed their comments. That's the same provisions we've got in the Maniapoto one as well. And then finally, there's a process there for us to have a discussion with Ngāti Maru on, as we're going through a plan change process, whether it's appropriate to have a commissioner that has an appropriate understanding of Mataranga Māori and Taranaki tikanga on the panel, and if so, who relevant commissioners with those skills might be. So monitoring and enforcement, the JMA for this is basically a cut and paste from what the settlement says we have to do, because the settlement's quite prescriptive. In fact, it's not, it is that. So the settlement requires that the Waitara River Committee must meet twice every year to discuss and agree. So that agree word is important for that shared decision making about these things here, around monitoring priorities, potential criteria for prosecutions, a whole lot of stuff. And importantly, the costs of this must be paid out of that Waitara River money that the Waitara River Committee administers. So for example, again, if this committee agreed, oh yeah, we need another monitoring station in the Waitara, that money would have to, the money for that station would have to come out of those funds.
Currently the fund's about 14 million, is it?
I think it's about 30. 30? Yeah, off the top of my head. And there's similar provisions on this in the Mana Waka Hono without the enforcement side. So it's focusing on the monitoring rather than the enforcement. So not that requirement around, for example, criteria on commencing prosecutions and things. For resource consents, again, the JMA reproduces what's in the Settlement Act. So we're required to notify them of a range of information on consents received, which we already do. And within 24 months, we put the time frame, or longer if we need it. We have to agree a bunch of criteria to help in the processing of resource consents. And there's a big long list specified in the Act about what those should be. On that, as we've been working through this process, Ngāti Maru has been, we've all very pragmatic and focused on moving into the new resource management regime. The focus is on plan making. And the spatial plan and the natural environment plan that comes after. Resource consents, that is something which we can deal to later in time, hence the 24 months or otherwise agreed to develop those criteria, because we're going to be under the pump for plan making, so we've been very, very agreed that we need to focus on that. And then we must acknowledge Ngāti Maru as an affected party for mining activities within scope of the JMA. And there's nothing in consents on the Mana Waka Hono, except it does say at some point in the future we might like to amend it and edit it, but nothing for now.
Finbar, just before you go off of the resource consents, how does it align with the fast tracking process? How will the agreement align with that?
Fast track would be a separate beast. None of these, as far as I understand, none of these obligations would explicitly apply to the fast track process, but the iwi would be, Ngāti Maru would be captured as within the consultation requirements of that act, and I think you'd be pointing this agreement out to the EPA to help inform their process.
So it's a slight expansion of what we're already doing.
It's not a dramatic shift.
It just articulates what you currently do, surely.
Yeah.
Other matters in these agreements, so capacity building is provided in both of them. Basically, that's these two, the groups would, as part of their meetings, would also talk if there's opportunities to build iwi capacity to engage in matters in the agreements, for example, secondments, and also if there's opportunities to support council staff in building their own capacity to work with iwi. So those secondments could also go both ways. The JMA also talks about developing a strategy for the restoration and enhancement of the Waitara catchment. That's very intricately linked to the Waitara River Committee, so hence that we don't have to agree that until 12 months after the Waitara River Committee has been established itself, which is a whole separate agreement. Freshwater farm plans, again, to be developed in the future. We're still waiting to see how those change, but potentially a really good opportunity for building stronger relationships between landowners and Ngāti Maru and things like that, or council. And then finally, we also have to notify Ngāti Maru if we come across any issues with abandoned petroleum wells in the Waitara River catchment, which is fairly straightforward. Finally, there's a bunch of what I would, hopefully this isn't offensive to the legal profession, Councillor Hughes, legal guff at the end of the agreement, which is all kind of the required stuff you have to have. But actually no, the first two are quite important. So setting out, obviously as you'll be aware, there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment, both regards to the Resource Management Act and what replaces it, and the very future of this council. So the agreements speak to that. For the resource management side, it just says, when the RMA is replaced, we will do our best to implement these agreements under that framework. And that actually mirrors the language that is in the bills anyway. The bills tell us that's what we have to do. So that's fairly straightforward. And then for local government reform, the agreements just acknowledge it and again signal that, hey, where we stand now, we'd like these agreements to carry forward, but we can't bind those future entities. There's a lot of water to run under that very large bridge still. Yeah. And then review, dispute resolution, conflict of interest, and things like that. All, I should say, both of these agreements have been reviewed by our lawyers as well, which is, since they're pretty complicated. So next steps, if you do endorse and send them for agreement, we would work through the signing. You'll see in the recommendation that there is also a delegation to the Chief Executive to make any, this is mainly for the Manawaka Hono, to make any minor amendments to the agreement. That agreement still needs to go through the other 3 districts as well. So there's possibility as it goes through that process, a few issues are raised that then we need to resolve. So that just gives us the ability to do that without coming back to you. Unless there are major changes, then we would bring it back. But that agreement can be signed with Ngāti Maru and TRC, and then it would have effect. It's drafted in a way so that we can still get the ball rolling as well, which is useful. We need to develop terms of references for those relationship forums and leadership forums. We need to be talking to Ngāti Maru now about how we work together on spatial planning, so this usefully informs that. And actually that's worth emphasising as well. For the spatial plan, we have to agree the process agreement, and that includes how we work with iwi. How we're thinking about it is basically the plan-making provisions of the JMA and Manawaka Hono are the text that you would use in your process agreement for how you would work with iwi. So we're able to kind of do a bunch of that work now, so it makes it a bit easier down the line. We're still, after this, we need to go away and work through how we're going to address all the other Manawaka Hono that have been initiated with us. This has been our priority to date. And then finally, just to note, we will continue trying to progress, and there's some promising signs here around the establishment of the Waitara River Committee as well. I'll leave it there, happy to take any questions. As I said at Exec Audit and Risk, I just would like to also thank Ngāti Maru and their staff. They've been very good to work with throughout this process as we've been working through 2 quite complicated agreements. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Finbar, and thanks to you and your team for doing such a thorough job. It looks very, very extensive, but very good. So well done. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I'd just again like to ask a question or two. Firstly, it looks like the RMA will, or the new legislation will be done within, or really at the second reading within 3 weeks, I understand. So would it be then appropriate for you to come back and give us another talk about how that may have changed or adjusted what we think the thing is, because it appears it's had all this time in select committee, so it could be quite a modified piece of legislation that comes out at that stage.
Through you, Chair, the Select Committee report back was originally due last Friday. It's now been delayed to the end of July.
24th. Yeah. 23rd.
So yeah, we're definitely happy to do a report back on how the bills change writ large. In terms of these agreements themselves, they're focused under the RMA, so that's kind of the legal framework that we have to operate under now. But yeah, we can definitely do a report back on. I mean, they'll be pertinent for the Policy and Planning Committee in particular on how it impacts, and Ops and Reg actually, for how it impacts all of our functions in terms of how those bills would shift.
Yes, and I guess I won't ask any more questions, but there obviously are things about the fact that you might have what the district plans might be after this event, whether it's one plan or 2 plans or overlapping or whatever happens there, and also around some of these matters with water and other things that could change all of this. So I guess I won't ask any more questions, but just say we're standing on the brink of some very big changes, and we won't really know where we're going until we get through the next phase.
And through you, Chair, just to add one more thing, with that in mind, we've been quite careful to draft these agreements to be not too specific, by focusing very broadly on kind of, especially in plan making, where it's us coming together to talk through these matters. By not being too specific, they should transfer quite easily over to the new arrangement, particularly as we know they can slot into that process agreement as well.
Kia ora Whanba. Just in reflection of your comments, Neil, around us not knowing what's coming and what to expect, I guess a reminder for all of us that iwi are always very clear about what they expect any organisation that will follow us to do, which is why they are triggering these mechanisms that enable them to stay at the forefront of these conversations, which I think is critical, because iwi are doing 300, 400, 500 year plans, whereas we're limited within local government to a very, very short scope of planning into the future. So I congratulate the whānau for initiating these actions and for enabling the whanaunga, other iwi, to also join where appropriate, and the team, Maria and the team, Whanba and your team, for being kaitiaki in what is a very uncertain time, trying to, as the best you can, look after the mana of tangata whenua and the rohi. So when we're ready, I'm happy to move the recommendations, Mr Chair, if there's no other comment or conversation.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just
Questions? Yeah.
through you, Chair, you know I've been around a long time. We've been trying to get agreements like this in place for a long time, so I'm very pleased to see that occurring. And to me, this takes us forward, provides more certainty and structure to what's already happening. And so it's a natural progression to a more positive place, in a summary. Yeah. And operationally, it'll be a lot better for us.
Thanks.
I'm very happy to second that.
Okay, so the recommendations as they stand there, A through to G, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none.
Kia ora.
Thank you.
Well done.
Item number 10, meeting dates. They are there in front of you. There is obviously, there's just one missing there. It's a joint workshop on the 9th of July. 9 a.m. through to 3:30 p.m. That should all be in your diaries anyway, so we'll just add that into the agenda there. So we're receiving the meeting dates, including that one.
No, move, Chair.
Thank you. I'll second that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Down none. Public excluded recommendation. There is a resolution there on page 128.
No, move, Chair.
Thanks, Tom. I'll second that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Let me know when we're good.